Good morning, guys. This is Miss Bays. I know it doesn't sound like me, but I'm still trying to fight whatever I was fighting last week with my voice. I'm not feeling so well still, but it's okay. We're going to make it through this lesson today, and hopefully you can understand everything I'm saying. I apologize if I get choked up or cough in between, but um, hopefully we can make it through it. What I need you to do today is make sure that you're taking notes, because at the end you're going to be taking a quiz, and I want to make sure that you have something there to help you through the quiz. So I would definitely suggest that you take notes as we work through. We're going to start out with our learning objective for this morning. As always, I like for you to know ahead of time what you should be learning from the lesson. So your learning objective for today is I will use patterns to multiply with 10 as a factor. Now, I remember last week at school, we were working on patterns with 2s, 5s, and 9s. Today, we're going to be talking about patterns that we see with 10s to help us with multiplication facts. The purpose for our lesson today is you already know how to multiply by numbers less than 10. We talked about, again, 2s, 5s, and 9s already. We were working on some of those things on Friday. We'll continue some of those on the day we return back to school. But for now, we're going to go ahead and work on 10s. So we're going to be learning how to multiply by 10. Now, remember what I've always said about the number 10. It ends in 0. We love numbers that end in 0. It's supposed to make things a little easier for us. We can count by our 10s. Those are some of the things we learned when we first started school. So what models have you used to show multiplication? Now, think about what we did when we first started multiplication. So as you're thinking, I want you to think about what we made for our wall outside in the hallway. And I hope you're saying arrays. We use arrays to multiply. We also used equal groups to multiply. And then we used what we call the standard algorithm, where we just multiplied. 2 times 5 equals 10, or 5 times 8 equals 40. So we were just using those type of things that we knew. We used skip counting to help us. Today we're going to learn how to model using 10s. So here's going to be your pose a problem. I want you to look at the problem. I want you to pause the video. Try it on your own first. See what you already know. Because I love to challenge myself to see what I already know, because sometimes I know more than I think I do. So go ahead and pause the video now and try this one on your own. Again, here I would ask that you use some kind of counters. You probably have some counters at your house somewhere, just anything that you could use to count. I want you to think about how many counters are going to be in each row. We need to think about how many rows we're going to have. In this case, how many counters are in each row? There should be 10. How many rows should there be? There should be 6. So what multiplication fact does this array show? I hope you said 6 times 10. So how many miles would Duke run in 6 weeks? So if we're multiplying 6 times 10, we can use our fingers to count here. We can use that array that you just made if you had counters at home that you could use. But 6 times 10 equals 60. So he would have ran 60 miles in 6 weeks. So what would an array for 7 times 10 look like? Now think about this. If we're doing an array, 7 would equal how many rows you have. 10 would be in each row. So if we use skip counting, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. We could use that. We could do, again, 7 rows of 10. We could do 7 groups with 10 in each group. So how much is 7 times 10? It would equal 70. How can we use the products that we found for 6 times 10 and 7 times 10 to help us with 8 times 10? Again, we could already know that 7 times 10 equals 70. So we could count up one more time, and 8 times 10 would equal 80. So we're going to do that skip counting to help us there. What about 10 times 10? Could we use that same method? So if we already know that 8 times 10 equals 80, 9 times 10 has to equal 90, 10 times 10 would equal 100. With a partner, I wanted you to complete this table to find a pattern or make an array. But we're not going to be able to do that in a small group because we're not at school and you have no one to work with today. So what I want you to do on a sheet of paper, I want you to start out with 10 times 0. And I want you to continue with 10 with your tens up through 10 times 10. So as you're working through that, 10 times 0, 10 times 1, 10 times 2, and so on, all the way through 10 times 10, I want you to start thinking about what you're seeing there and what's happening each time that you multiply 10 times another number. So go ahead and pause your video and take a few minutes to do that. So I want you to describe the patterns that you noticed as you were doing that multiplication. If you notice, as we started out, we were seeing some patterns with tens for sure. And it makes tens much easier for me to multiply. I kind of like what I'm seeing with those patterns. So when we're trying to describe those, the products all have a 0 in the ones place. So that's telling me that every time that I multiply by 10, I'm going to have a 0 in the ones place value. And usually the number that's in the tens place is always going to be the number I'm multiplying times 10. So if I'm multiplying 10 times 1, I'm going to have a 0 in the ones place and a 1 in the tens place. If I'm multiplying 10 times 5, I'm going to have a 0 in the ones place and a 5 in the tens place. I want you to try these problems on your own. So go ahead and pause your video now. And try these to help you solve them. And then we're going to quickly go over them before you move on to take the quiz at the end. And I do want you to use your notes to help you through this. So go ahead and pause your video now. So let's check your answers compared to the answers that I have. When we're multiplying 2 times 10, we get 20. Again, if you're skip counting, you can go 10, 20 to get your answer. Number 2, 9 times 10 would equal 90. We have a 0 in the ones place and a 9 in the tens place. 10 times 8 is equal to 80. Again, you've got a 0 in the ones place and an 8 in the tens place. So remember that rule that you should always have a 0 in the ones place value, and the number that's in the tens place value should equal the number that you're multiplying by. All right, so let's go ahead and move forward. Let's look at our lesson objective one more time. I will use patterns to multiply with 10 as a factor. So I want you to try this quiz. Again, use your notes. I think you're going to do fine on this one. If you have any trouble, you know that you can contact me on our Google Classroom. So go ahead and try these. I'll be available for you today. Please let me know when you're finished and I'll go take a look at your quiz. Complete the quiz at the end of your Nearpod lesson. Have a great day, guys. Hopefully, I'll see you tomorrow.